Hello and welcome to Wardens of the Cross. This is the Defender. Jesus Christ, while on earth, preached the gospel and taught all of his apostles the teachings we now read in the New Testament, with the intention of them spreading it to all of mankind. While the Catholic Church, being God's church, has fulfilled this to its utmost ability, there are those who deny the divinity of Christ. Despite everything in the Old Testament pointing to Jesus authentically being the Christ, there are still those who deny his divinity and claim that he was simply an impersonator or a deranged person. The goal of today's episode is to use evidence from the Old Testament to prove that Jesus was indeed the Messiah, and that he was and is truly God on earth, and that the prophecies of his coming have already been fulfilled. While there are many prophecies in the Old Testament, and Jesus completed them all, the best way to prove that he was the Christ is by showing how he completed these prophecies, which he had no control over without being God. One of the best examples of this is in Jesus' birth, which he obviously could not have controlled without being God. In Isaiah 7:14, we are told, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall call him Emmanuel." Jesus was born of a virgin, the Virgin Mary, which is obviously impossible barring the hand of God having a part to play in it. We are told in the book of Micah 5:2 that the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem, and that he would be from the tribe of Judah. Jesus was also both of these. These are both prophecies which Jesus fulfilled without being able to control either of them, not without being God at any rate. While these prophecies of the birth of the Messiah were completed by Jesus, so were prophecies of his death. The chances of every prophecy concerning the death of the Messiah being completed are incredibly low for many reasons, with the most obvious one being this. If a man was in the process of being tortured and killed, would he bother to remember to complete every single prophecy written in a book while enduring such pain? Would he even remember all of the prophecies? It is highly likely not, and, even if he did, the chances of a normal man completing all of these and the prophecies of the birth of the Messiah are practically non-existent. In the book of Zechariah 11, verses 12 and 13, we are told that the Messiah would be portrayed for 30 silver pieces. And this is completed, as we see in the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verses 14 to 15. Also, of the many death prophecies which Jesus fulfilled, the one he certainly did not have any control of was the stabbing of his side with the lance, as was prophesied in the book of Zechariah 12:10. Also prophesied in the Old Testament is the fact that the Messiah would be crucified and resurrected, which Jesus Christ was. During Jesus' childhood, there are many prophecies which were also fulfilled by him, or which coincided with the coming of the Messiah, which were all foretold in the Old Testament. At the birth of Jesus Christ, one of the many King Herods was in power over the Holy Land. He, being afraid of his title of king, sent riders to try and kill the baby, which was said to be the king of the world, and initiated a massacre of all infants in the region. This was prophesied in Jeremiah 31:15, when it states, "A voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and great weeping, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted, because they are no more." This turn of events led to the flight of Joseph, Mary, and Jesus to Egypt, which was also foretold in Hosea 11:1. The possibility of Jesus Christ completing all of the prophecies about the Messiah's birth and death and not being the Messiah is highly unlikely, nigh impossible. While these prophecies could not be intentionally completed by any normal man on purpose, Jesus did complete all of the other prophecies of the Messiah in the Old Testament. Despite this evidence, there are still those who claim that Jesus was not the Messiah, and rather that this is just an amazing coincidence. The mathematical and statistical evidence against this claim is, however, overwhelming. Biblical scholars have different estimations about how many prophecies of the Messiah are contained within the Old Testament, but most agree that there are somewhere around 300 at least. When one considers all of these prophecies, and how many of them were not capable of being completed with intention, such as those of his birth and death, it becomes highly apparent that Jesus Christ was most certainly the Messiah which was promised. The biblical and mathematical proof alone is more than enough to make a almost definite claim that Jesus Christ is truly the Messiah and was God on earth. He completed every prophecy of the coming of our Messiah which is given within the Old Testament, including those which he had no control over, such as his birth or form of execution. The Son of God did truly walk the earth about 2,000 years ago, and some of mankind simply looks the other way and refuses to admit that he was God, that there is a God, and that God will come again to judge all of mankind at the end of time.